I'm pleased to say I'm joined by Sunday's World Grand Prix runner-up, Nathan Aspinall. Thanks for the time, Nathan. How you doing?
Yeah, very well, mate. Yourself? You good?
All good, thanks. And we are a little under 48 hours since Sunday's final, where you ran Michael van Gerwen close, coming back from 4-0 down to 4-3 before losing out 5-3. How do you reflect now on last week in Leicester?
Yeah, all I can do is take positives away from the weekend. The week, sorry. I played some high-profile players all week. Every game I've had to grind the results out and to obviously walk away with a trophy. Granted, it wasn't the one I wanted, but to make the final of any TV major is special. It's always nice to make a final. It's the first time I played Michael in a TV final as well, so that kind of added to the occasion. I'll just like I say, massive positives from the week, and that's all I can really say, to be fair.
Well, we'll come back to the Grand Prix a little later, but we'll rewind to when we last had you on the show, just after you made the semi-finals on your first event back on the Euro Tour. You were very open about the struggles that you were having with your injury, and I remember you saying there was a concern about your future in darts. You may have to have an operation. So what's changed since then to get you back to where you are now, getting into major finals?
Yeah, the operation was true. I had to have an operation. That's what he was advising me to do, and take the time away from the sport for, it was a minimum of 6 months, and that was basically to go into the wrist and basically sew my tendons back together, which sounds pretty brutal. So that was kind of one part of the procedure. And then also in my wrist, I have no cartilage left. So when I throw, my two bones effectively near my index finger rub together. So there was also talk about shaving the bone in my wrist. So as you can tell, it's two quite big procedures for someone of my, someone who plays darts basically for a living. So I didn't want to go down that route. The only other option was obviously resting and kind of a bit of rehab, which is the option I went down. Obviously, it's affected me match practice because I couldn't play for probably 2 or 3 months. Practice wise, it's been really tough because after I'd say half an hour, the pain was unbearable. But I made the decision. I didn't want to do the operation. I didn't want to take the risk of, one, would I ever come back to the standard I played at? 2, could I ever play again? Operations do go wrong, and that was obviously a big concern of of mine. So I made the decision to go against it, and I've just kind of dealt with it myself, really. I've cut the practice down. I was picking and choosing tournaments, pulling out of tournaments if I didn't feel up to it, and just trying to give myself the best opportunity to get a few wins in the tournaments I played, and it seems to have worked.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, since that semi-final on the Euro Tour, you've made some big strides in this comeback, if you like. I mean, a final on the floor, then you won a title soon after that. What did that mean to you to be back in the winner's circle in the PDC again?
Yeah, I think you saw the emotion. I say it's only a Pro Tour because to win a Pro Tour is a massive thing, but obviously I've won bigger tournaments than that, and I think I showed more emotion winning the floor tournament than I probably did when I won the UK Open. So it's been a battle. It's been tough. I've been an absolute nightmare to live with for the last 4 or 5 months because I've had to deal with the mental state as well. I love this game. I have an amazing life. And as I keep saying in interviews, when you get so close to being taken away, you appreciate what you've got. And I think it was a combination of everything I've been through for the last 6 months to actually see, wow, I can actually still win these tournaments. That it was kind of a massive weight off my shoulders. I was like, will I ever get back to playing my best, or will I ever get back to winning? And when I won that tournament, it was, like I say, a massive weight off my shoulders, and it gave me the belief and the hunger to actually want to get back to the top again.
And we saw that one of the first major events we saw you back in was the World Match Play, where you made the quarterfinals, and you said after your first round win over Luke Humphries, not many were giving you a chance in that one. Are you someone who'll read or listen to what the pundits are predicting, or did you just get that impression people were writing you off?
No, it's the one thing I've got to stop doing. I'm big into my social media. I see everything. See it, what everyone says, and to be fair, I do use it as motivation sometimes. Obviously, that was why I had that reaction on the game against Luke Humphries, because I've seen everyone, people weren't even thinking I was going to win a couple of legs, let alone win the match. So yeah, I do use it as motivation sometimes, but then likewise sometimes it works against you when you see negative stuff. But yeah, that was my first tournament back on the telly, and I knew I was playing well. I think I'd won another Pro Tour maybe before that. I know I've had a couple of semi-finals on a Euro Tour, and I knew I fancied it. I fancied a good run, and I did get to the quarters, and yeah, our green friend beat me again, didn't it?
Yeah, your green friend Michael van Gerwen just cutting short that comeback again, and another comeback for you against Michael van Gerwen, 16-14. And we saw on Twitter, I think the next day you were in a pub and you were on table 146. I remember Keith Deller telling me a story about he was on the road with Eric Bristow and the next bus was at 138 and he said, I'm going to walk instead. Did you consider moving from that table?
Yeah, well, I think, it did cross my mind, but no, I put it on social media. As I say, I'm big into my social. I think it shows the type of character that I am, the type of guy that I am. I don't dwell on defeats. That was the day after, talking prize money and ranking. It cost me a few quid, that shot. So for me to be able to, the day after, just joke about it, I think it shows the type of guy that I am. But yeah, 146. And he nearly did it again on Sunday night. But we'll talk about that later. Yeah,
that's right. And as you say, after the World Match Play, more good runs on the Euro Tour. You had that second title going into the World Grand Prix last week. It's one of the hardest tournaments to try and predict, with there only being 8 seeds. And you were drawn out with Michael Smith in the first round, and it was last on that Tuesday. How difficult is it to then try and prepare for that, being last on in a long session like that, which also overran?
Yeah, it's been very tough. Certainly earlier in the week, because obviously I was last on against Michael, and you look at the games, and so the night before I was sharing a house with Dobie, so he was on. So I was watching his session, and then I stayed and watched the whole night, and it was like, I think it was just before 12 o'clock by the time they finished. And it was only 2 games that went 2-1 in sets. So I looked at that he was played in the session that I was in, and I was like, I can easily see 4 or 5 games there going 2-1. So which bangs another hour on. And I was like, I ain't going to walk on stage till midnight at this rate. And, I wasn't far off. But obviously by the time I walked off stage, I think it was 25 past 12. That's not job done then. You got to go and do all your press. And then I got to travel back. So I got back to the house where I was staying at about 1:30, 1:45. Adrenaline pumping. I don't think it got my head down to about 4 o'clock. And then typically they put me on last again against Danny Noppet, which I had a feeling, because of who else was in that session, that would be the last game, and it was. And again, that was another late night. And they must have liked me last week, and then they've gone from putting me last twice to putting me first on. So Friday was quite tough against Lukeman. But at the end of the day, you're still in the tournament. You got to get on with it. We're all professional. We've all been in these situations before. But it is hard. It is tiring, because there's a lot of other stuff that go on that the public don't see. Obviously, they can see you playing the match on TV. There's a lot of other stuff that goes into it beforehand. But it's just one of them things. You just have to get on with it.
Definitely. Well, you got over the schedule, you got past Danny Noppet, you got past Martin Lukeman, and then you get past, at the time, the world number 1 Gerwyn Price to make your first major final since the Premier League in 2020. I know you've beaten Gerwyn and a few of the other top boys this year, but to get a win over the world number 1 on TV in the semi-final, how much confidence did a win like that give you going into the final?
Yeah, Gerwyn Price, he's playing well. He had 2 amazing sets against Joe Cullen. But apart from that, I didn't look at him and like I wasn't worried. If he played Michael in the semi-final, he's been amazing all tournament. Then that might have been a different story. But I wasn't worried going into the game, because I thought, well, he's not playing great. I'm playing okay. That is literally all on the night, and he just didn't play well. I just don't know what happened. Thankfully he couldn't hit tops. But I think. I evaluated that match, and I think he was waiting for me to start jumping around. He'd mentioned it in an interview the day before that and he knows what I'm like to jump around. And I think he was waiting for that, for him to to get himself pumped up, and a bit of a game plan from himself to try and keep it quite flat and quite calm, and just try and stay focused on my match. And that's what I did, and I think it affected him. And luckily I got the win, and any win over Gerwyn Price, when he's flying, he's pretty unstoppable. So any win against him, especially in a major semi-final, is always special.
Yeah, and the game plan worked, and you touched on it earlier. It was the first time you've played Michael van Gerwen in a TV final. It was the first time you've played a TV final where it's just the one game on the day. You've not played one or two games before that. So what was that like for you, that first experience of the longer build-up?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was certainly something that I said to my manager on the way down. I said, it's going to feel weird going into a practice room with just, like, literally me and Michael, his manager and my manager. It was, these practice rooms and these big events, because obviously they start off with, 33 players, they are quite large. So it was just, it was quite surreal, really. It was kind of a pinching moment that I'm in this situation that, you think of them situations in the world final, like all them people have been there for 3 weeks and it's down to these final two guys in that massive room at the Ali Pally practicing before the game. How must it feel? And I had a little bit of that on Sunday. It was quite surreal, really, but yeah, it was nice to be focused on the one match, to be fair. It is tough when you've got to play multiple games in a day, especially getting the ups and the downs, but the prep went well. There's absolutely nothing wrong with my prep. The prep felt great. Felt like the most relaxed I felt all week, to be quite honest with you, because I had nothing to lose. All the pressure was on his shoulders. He'd been the best player by a mile, by a country mile, to be fair. So I thought, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy myself. I've got picked up another trophy, put me in the Grand Slam. I've moved close to the top 10. And my game plan was just to go and enjoy myself for the first time in a long time. Not feeling the pressure. The pressures of a couple of years ago when everyone's expecting me to win tournaments, not having the pressure of worrying about my wrist, because my wrist is pretty much back to full fitness. I just said to myself, you know what, win or lose, just make sure you have a good night. And honest to God, I absolutely love the match.
Yeah, it turned out to be a great final, and watching it, 4-0 down in a race to 5, you're up against it with Michael, but coming off the stage 4-0 down, how did you feel the game had went? Because there were 2 sets which went to a decider, and Michael was, I guess, at his most punishing, ruthless best, wasn't he? Any mistakes you made, he was all over him.
Yeah, I knew I was playing well. He had an amazing second set. I think it was under an 8 average, maybe, but he beat me in a decider. But yeah, when you walk off, you kind of there's loads of telly backstage, and I clocked, and I knew I was averaging in the 90s, which is good standard at double in, double out, and he was averaging I think 94, 95, which is just ridiculous after 4 sets. So I kind of seen him off stage. I was like, Mike, I deserve a set here, lad. You know what I mean? Just chill out with your 160s. He was like, you're playing well, keep going. And obviously I'd nicked the set. So at that point I'm just laughing and joking, trying to get the crowd involved a little bit. It wasn't the biggest of crowd, and then all of a sudden I win the next 2 sets, and then all of a sudden I'm going, oh wow, I actually might win this, because he kind of went, and I actually thought I got to him. His doubles were miles away for only 10 minutes, but that 10 minutes can be a set, so I knew I had to punish him. And that's what I was doing. I upped the game. I changed to double 16, which was working brilliant. And you never know. On another day, that 65 goals, you could have been talking to the winner, not the runner-up. But that's the beauty of darts. And I'm not going to be negative about it. I was happy with the runner-up, but I do believe that if I took that set, I could have won it.
No, I can't argue with that. And it's another great game that you've had with Michael on that stage, and I think during that comeback people were probably thinking back to the other times where you've trailed Michael and fought back. The European Championships, you were 7-1 down, got that to a last leg, the match play that we spoke about this year. How do you keep believing in those moments when you are that far behind against one of the best, and people are calling him the best in the world again now?
Yeah, again, he's like, to me, he's the best player in the world, and he's always been the best player in the world since I've ever started playing darts. So he does have that bit of an aura about him, certainly with me anyway. Other players might disagree, but he's still a man. Do you know what I mean? And I think what it is when I play him I always play him in the last stages. I never play him early, and I always play him in the last stages. And I think I give him a bit too much respect, which is why I'm always losing in games against him. But then, as any dart player knows, if you're losing and you're pretty much out of the game, I'm not trying to take any credit from myself here, but the shackles do come off and you do relax a lot more, and it is a lot easier. to be fair, it is a lot easier to throw them good darts when there's not as much pressure on you because you think you've lost, and I think that's why I do come back quite a lot. But if you take anything away from the week is stop giving the best player in the world a 7, 8, 9 leg head start, because you're good but you're not that good, Nathan. Do you know what I mean? So hopefully one day I won't give him his head start, and then on paper I should smash him, shouldn't I, really?
Definitely. Well, looking ahead, we know it's no secret you want to be back in the Premier League next year. Your 2 years that you had in it, they were disrupted by the pandemic. So what would it mean for you to get back in there next year, and with the full crowds that we are now back to week in, week out?
100%. A lot of players don't like talking about it, and pundits, etc. till certainly a bit later than it is now. But that's been my goal since I started playing at a level where my wrist isn't hurting me, at a level that I can compete at. That's been my target. It's been a small step. I recall, because I was missing Europeans, etc., that I fell out the top 16 on the Pro Tour. So I had to do 2 European qualifiers. So first step was get back in that top 16 on the Pro Tour, be qualified for the Euro Tours. So I did that, I ticked that box. Then it was get back in the winner's circle and win a Pro Tour, tick that box. Then it was get back in the top 16 in the world, I've ticked that box. Now it's push on TV, I've done that. So now the next stage is get back in that top 10, top 8, and make it impossible for Matt and Barry and Eddie and whoever else makes the decision to not overlook me and to put me back in the Premier League. Because I've had 2 goals at the Premier League, but I've never actually experienced the full wrath of the Premier League. I think I've had 7 nights in arenas, and the rest has all been in Milton Keynes in front of 4 security guards. So that's not the Premier League, you know what I mean? And I want to taste it properly. And I think with this new format as well, I think it'll suit me down to the ground, to be fair. I think I'll do really well in it. And then likewise, like the World Series, I was gutted this year not to get America, even though with everything that was going on. I thought they would have sent me back to defend the title. Obviously they didn't, but obviously that's their decision. But I want to get back in that World Series again. I want to travel the world, and at the end of the day, I want to win trophies and make as much money as I can for me and my family. So everything's going in the right direction. The injury's done now. I am probably going to come out in the next week or so to make a bit of a statement about my wrist, because even though I understand people care and want to know what's going on, it's kind of every time we talk now, it's always about the wrist, and I want to try and put it to the back of my mind now, and just concentrate on the end of the year and what can be a fantastic end of the season for me.
Well, I'm glad that's sorted out for you. And lastly, this will probably be the last time we chat before the Football World Cup. Last time we had you on, we spoke about you were at Wembley for the Euro final with England. How do you rate the Three Lions' chances in Qatar, though?
Jeez, God. I don't know. Not very high. I just think it's just one of them tournaments this year that it's just not good, is it? Let's be quite honest with you. Without going into the politics of everything, but yeah, it's not going to be the same. It's winter, there's nothing better than watching England with a can of magnets with your England top on in a beer garden or whatever. That's what the World Cup and the Euro is about. This time I'm going to have a hat and scarf on, sat inside in the pub. So it isn't going to be the same. They're not playing great, are they, to be honest with you? We should get through the group, but we'll see what happens. All the lads are going to be shattered, are they, to be honest with you? They've had half a season already. We'll see what happens, but I'm not, put it this way, I'm not putting a bet on them to win. So, yeah, I'll be keeping my pound in my pocket.
Same here. I've already transferred to supporting the England women's team. They seem to win trophies.
They were amazing. I've got 2 girls myself, and we both watched the final, me and my eldest daughter, and yeah, they were an inspiration. They were amazing. So, it's they can have their moment this year, the women. We'll give it to the women this year, and then we'll get ready for it in a couple of years in the summertime. Sounds
good to me. Well, Nathan, always appreciate the time. Congratulations on the comeback you've had this year, the run to the final last week, and wish you all the best for the rest of this year and what else is to come as well.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Alex. Thank you very much.